All right, it's on.
Yeah. Okay, anyways, how are you guys?
Fine.
Yeah? Okay, so I have a few questions for you guys.
All right.
Okay, so what branch of service were you in during World War II?
During World War II, I was in the Navy.
You were in the Navy? What countries did you get to go to?
Ha!
A lot?
I served on 4 different aircraft carriers in the North Atlantic between the eastern coast of the United States, the west coast of Europe, Gibraltar, and the west coast of Africa, from the equator to the Arctic Circle.
That is a lot of countries.
That's a lot of water.
Oh, yeah, that too.
But all those countries that touched, you know,
Yeah.
I never knew where I was going ashore.
Did you get to learn any new languages while you were away?
During World War II,
Yeah.
no.
No? So how did World War II impact your life?
Mine?
Yeah.
I was preparing myself for a career in aviation as a civilian. And when the war started, my father left on the 8th of December. He volunteered and went back in the Navy. And my mother refused to let me enlist until I was 18. And when I turned 18, I joined the Navy and went from there.
So how did World War II impact your life?
How did it affect my life?
Yeah.
Well, my father was a traveling salesman.
Yeah.
We lived in Denver, where I met him. We both went to the same church. He went to East High, I went to West High, because then the church was sort of on the line between the two high schools. But my father had been in the Army in World War I, and he immediately went down and tried to re-enlist, and of course they wouldn't take him, he was too old. So he went to work in civil service at Mare Island, and he had been a manager of a Safeway group for quite a number of years before he retired from there and was a traveling salesman just kind of for fun, I guess.
Your life, not your father's life.
But
Okay.
he went to Vallejo, and I joined them there and worked in civil service for about 6 months there, and then I transferred to Washington, D.C.
She became a federal employee.
And I was a federal employee, well, I was in Vallejo too. But I worked in well, it was the part of the Navy that does mapping, hydrographic underwater mapping, and I worked in the personnel department as secretary. And during that time, the war was proceeding. He came in and out, and he came in 1944, and we got married, and then we were both both in the service. But I didn't do much else, except I had some interesting people who came in. Our department was the personnel department of hydrographic, and we got a packet of papers we didn't open, but we had a letter with it that said it was to be sent to New York City to the, what was it, 10th?
Church Street. 10 Church Street.
Yeah, 10 Church Street, which was where they were developing the early development of the bomb, the E-bomb.
The Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project, and I simply handled papers that went back and forth, but it was interesting because it was very secret at that time. No one in our department knew what that was. And in the meantime, they developed the bomb and dropped it in Japan. That was
Now, you wanna tell her what your life was affected?
how my life
For
was.
example, she went on food rationing, gas was rationed, butter was
Oh, yeah.
rationed, cheese was rationed, meat was rationed, sugar was rationed.
Everything was
Everything was rationed
Yeah.
for the civilians.
Yeah,
Was that hard?
that's,
Tires for cars, you couldn't,
yeah.
Uh,
Well, you couldn't get gas for frivolous things, you know, just to go out on dates. You were rationed the amount of gas that you needed to drive from your home to your work. And if you were smart, you had other people who did the same thing, and that way you could carpool. I think that's where the carpool was
Yeah.
invented. Yeah.
okay, you guys will get a kick out of this. A family was allowed 3 gallons of gasoline a month.
What? Oh,
Oh my.
that is not why.
That was called an A stamp.
Yeah, well, I walked to work because it was only, maybe a half mile.
Yep.
Wasn't that far, it was good exercise.
Yeah.
And I walked to work every day.
And the civilians also used a lot of public transportation because we had a lot of, at that time in Denver and other places, we had what they called then streetcars, what you now call light rail,
Yeah.
but they went down the streets.
Okay. Did you guys do anything like creative to save your gas? Like you were saying like you guys like took public transportation and carpools. Was there anything else that you guys did?
Well, I didn't because I lived close enough to walk to work and
Okay.
I didn't have a car. My father had a car and he worked at the Navy Department. What was the name of that little burg between us and Washington DC? Annapolis, no, not Annapolis.
Now, they lived in Suitland, Maryland.
We lived in Suitland, Maryland, just outside Washington DC. I can't remember the name of it.
But the war moved them from Denver to the west coast to the east coast.
Yeah,
That's what the war did.
that's
for
what the
them.
war,
Plus
that's all.
all the rationing, as I told you.
Do you guys remember what your salary was when you were in the service?
Oh, I remember mine. I made $1,200 a year, $100 a month. And I think you made even less,
When
didn't
I
you?
enlisted in 1942, my pay was $21 a month.
Ooh.
Did you,
Yeah, well, indeed.
did you benefit from the GI Bill?
I did up to a point because after the war ended, I was still in the service. I had enlisted for 6 years
Yeah.
because I was considering making it a career. But after the war ended, and I was teaching aircraft maintenance for the Navy, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and go back to my original intent to work in civil aviation. So I enrolled in flight training under the GI Bill, but before my enlistment was up, the Korean War popped, and I couldn't get out. And so I was shipped to the
West Coast.
Orient
Yeah, the Orient.
and did all but the first and last month of the Korean fracas, either in theater or in country, picking up dud airplanes.
Yeah, by that time we were married
Yeah, and had kids.
and had,
How many
Yeah.
kids did you guys have?
Eventually, we had 4 boys.
Oh.
yeah.
It's a
That
crowded
must
house.
have been fun.
At that time we had 2.
At that time, we had 2 boys.
He was.
One was born in Japan.
He was
Third
based
was
in
born in
Japan, and
Japan.
so I traveled from my parents, I was staying with them in Vallejo, and I traveled from there to Japan, and we spent 2 years living here, and I worked at the ship's store while we were
And
there.
we we spoke Japanese.
Oh, you
Yeah,
do?
and we
Still
learned
do.
Japanese.
Very nice. So where were you guys and how did you feel when you heard the war was over?
Oh, let me see, where was I?
You were sitting in the living room with the youngest, with the oldest boy when your father
Michael.
started yelling
Yeah,
and whooping.
our oldest boy was about 6 months old. No, he wasn't that old.
He wasn't even that old.
He was born in June,
And
and
war
this
ended
was
in August.
August the 14th. And I was still at my mother and father's house. And my father always listened to the news at noon, and then he worked on swing shifts, so he'd listen to the news at noon, and we'd have dinner, and he'd go to work. And I was staying with my mother there. And he let out a whoop that was unbelievable. And I went running in to see what was wrong, because I thought something must have gone wrong.
Yeah.
And he said, the war's ended, the war has ended.
Yeah.
Japan has surrendered, and he was so elated. Of course, I was too,
Yeah.
because he was on a train headed for the West Coast to get on a ship to go out. So we avoided that war. But he went back to Norman, Oklahoma,
Taught school
taught,
for the Navy for 4 years.
taught for the Navy for 4 years, and then he was assigned to a squadron in Japan, and we went over. Spent, what, 2 years there? I was
3.
there 2 years, you were
3.
Yeah. I enjoyed that.
Did he write you letters when he was away? Like, did he write you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I still have those letters.
Oh, really? Okay, anyways. Thank you
I'm not telling you what
guys.
was in the letters.
Alright, well, thank you guys. We liked hearing your story. And
Okay.
thank you for,
Serving our country.
serving our country. We appreciate it.
It was quite a spell.
Yeah, I was a lifer, I did 21 years.
That's a really long time.
We've been married, we celebrated our
We've been married 69 years.
69th
That's a long time.
anniversary
And
just last week.
we're in our late 80s.
Yeah.
She was 18 and I was 19 when we were married.
Hey, different time back then.
Well, it lasted. I don't know if it would have been the same if it'd been peacetime. We
I
probably
think they have another
would not
interview
have
waiting.
gotten married that
Yeah.
early.
Oh no, you can take your time. It's fine.
No, I don't want to cut into anybody
Oh,
else's.
okay.
No.
I